On this board, we're talking about how to retire early. I'm really excited. Let's jump right in. Number one is this. Clearly define your vision of retirement. Clearly define your vision of retirement. How would you describe your ideal vision of retirement? And keep in mind, retirement is not about sitting out on a beach somewhere not doing anything, right? You know, retirement is not about not working. It's about being able to do work that you want to do, right? Retirement is about being able to do work that you want to do instead of have to do, right? That's what retirement is all about, right? And remember, retirement is not an age, right? It's a number. And we will get into that, right? About how it's all about hitting your financial freedom number, to be able to retire. And so really it's not about us hitting a certain age, it's about hitting a certain number in your investment portfolio, right? And we're going to talk more about that. So number one is clearly define your vision of retirement. Number two is this, calculate your financial freedom number. Your financial freedom number is the amount of money in your investment portfolio that you have to hit in order for your investment portfolio to be able to consistently cover the cost of your living expenses every year, right? And we use something called the 4% rule to calculate that number, right? So calculate your financial freedom number. Number three is this, track and analyze your finances on a daily basis. This is huge because this will help you to identify opportunities to increase your income and decrease your expenses and increase your investments, right? So track and analyze your finances. It's amazing. Just by becoming aware of the money that's coming in and the money that's going out, just by becoming aware of that will help you to be able to control your finances. It'll be able to help you to identify, you know, areas where you will want to cut back on certain outflows, right? And areas where you will want to be able to generate more income, just that awareness. Awareness breeds control, right? When you become aware of the inflow and outflow of your money, it puts you in a position to be able to make wise decisions regarding your finances, right? So, number three is track and analyze your finances. Understand how much money you're spending in various categories every month, right? That awareness is key. So number one, clearly define your vision of retirement. Number two, calculate your financial freedom number. Number three, track and analyze your finances. And now number four, eliminate all bad debt by using the avalanche method and or the snowball method. I like the avalanche method. Basically, if you have bad debt, meaning debt that is not part of like an investment strategy, right? There's good debt and bad debt, right? Good debt is debt that you are leveraging to be able to earn more money, right? That's good debt. But bad debt is like consumer debt. It's like, debt that's not making you money, right? Is not part of any type of like investment strategy, right? So you want to get rid of bad debt, right? And one way to do it, which is what I recommend, is the avalanche method. Where you list out all of your debt from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate, and of course pay the minimum balances on everything and any money that you have left over, really focus on getting rid of the highest interest rate debt, right? Then once you knock off the debt that was the highest interest rate, then you move to focus on the next debt that's the highest interest rate, right? And so it's called the avalanche method, right? Another method is called the snowball method, where you list out your debts from lowest balance to the highest balance, and you attack the highest you attack the lowest balance first, because the benefit of the that snowball is that, by achieving those small wins, right? Because you'll be able to knock out the small balances faster, right, than the larger balances. And then being able to get those small wins will help you build that emotional momentum to keep going, right? That's the logic there. So both ways are, both ways have benefits to it, right? But mathematically, the avalanche method makes more mathematical sense, right? But whatever way you choose, or even if you do like a hybrid method where you're using both methods, you know, whatever you do, just make sure you stay consistent in working your way with eliminating bad debt, right? You want to eliminate bad debt, right? So that's number four. Eliminate all bad debt by using the avalanche method or the snowball method. Number five, establish an emergency fund using a high yield savings account. The best place to put your emergency fund money is in a high yield savings account, or some people like a money market account, right? Either one is fine. I personally recommend a high yield savings account. And see, here's the thing. There's no reason why you should be keeping money in a regular savings account, because a regular savings account pays like less than 1% in interest, right? A high yield savings account pays much more than that, right? So for your emergency money, right? Put it into a high yield savings account or a money market account, right? All right, so and it's so important to have that emergency fund money, right? Because this is money that you might need within the next like 5 years, right? 5 to 10 years, right? You want to have it in your emergency fund account, right? And you want to keep your emergency fund in a high yield savings account. Number six, audit your skills, talents, and passions and look for ways to monetize them, right? Because think about it, every hobby that you have, every passion that you have, every skill that you have, every talent that you have, every skill, talent, and passion is a potential stream of income. You just have to learn how to package it and market it in a way that brings value to other people. That's all. So the starting point of that is to audit. You have to audit your skills, your talents, and your passions so that you'll be able to figure out ways in which you can monetize them, right? And I tell you, look, the most fun way to make money is through monetizing things that you enjoy doing, right? Right? That's one of the most fun way to make money is by turning a hobby into a business, right? So so really audit your skills, your talents and passions and look for ways to monetize them. Number seven is this: avoid lifestyle inflation. Oh, this is a big one. This is a big one. A lot of people, as they increase their income, a lot of people subconsciously will increase their lifestyle, their cost of living. Be aware of that. Be aware of that. The key is this: increase your income, but also keep your cost of living down so that you have that margin, right? That margin. You need that margin in order to be able to have a fully funded emergency fund. And also you need that margin so that you can really start to invest, right? So that you build up your income producing assets that will be able to generate the income to be able to cover your cost of living. But we will get into that, very, very soon. Okay. But definitely look, avoid lifestyle inflation, right? Keep your cost of living low, even as your level of income increases, right? So avoid lifestyle inflation. And this is also called lifestyle creep, right? Don't just automatically increase your cost of living as your income increases, right? you know? Keep, really build that margin between, your income and your cost of living. Number eight, monitor and maximize your credit report and credit score. All right. Your credit report and your credit score, very, very key. People who have a high credit score, they're able to qualify for like the lowest interest rates, right? So there's a lot of benefits to having a high credit score, right? Even when it comes to renting an apartment and getting insurance, car insurance, even. You know what I'm saying? There's so many different ways in which having a high credit score will benefit you, right? And so the starting point is this: you have to go on and you have to see what's on your credit report, right? At least once a year. At least once a year. Make sure you print out your credit reports. You can go on annualcreditreport.com, right? And print out a free copy of each of your credit reports, one from each of the three major credit bureaus, and look on your credit reports and see what's there. Understand what's on your credit report, right? And develop a strategy to maximize your credit score. You want to have a credit score above 760 because if you can get a credit score above 760, then you will qualify for the absolute best interest rates, right? The lowest interest rates, right? And so you end up saving a lot of money by having a high credit score, right? All right, so number eight is monetize. I mean, is number eight is monitor and maximize your credit report and credit score. Number nine, shop around for ideal health insurance, right? There's so many different options when it comes to health insurance. Look at different options, right? Especially if you are self-employed like I am, right? You want to look at, different options. Like for example, HSA. Look into the option of having a HSA account, a health savings account, right? It has to be tied to a high deductible health insurance plan, right? And so look into that because there's ways in which you can really save a lot, over the long term by using a HSA account that's tied to a high deductible health insurance plan. Also, shop around for ideal car insurance. This is huge. Like every 6 months, you should be shopping around for your health insurance. I mean, through your regarding your car insurance because you can save a lot of money by because look, even by keeping I recently helped a student of mine go from paying like he was paying like over like around $130 down, and I helped him go from around $130 down to paying only like around $60 a month in car insurance, all because I helped him shop around to find a good deal. And the thing about it was that he still kept the same level of coverage. It's just by switching carriers, he was able to get a much lower premium, right? For the same level of coverage, right? So really shop around. Also, you got to figure out what is your ideal level of car insurance coverage, right? If you have a very old car that's not really worth much, like if your car is only worth like $4,000, right? Then you want to look into maybe all you need is liability coverage, right? Maybe you don't need to have full coverage if your car is very old and is not worth much, right? So you have to look into all that and find your ideal car insurance coverage and then shop around to find the best carrier, the best company, for car insurance for you, for your situation, right? So you want to shop around for ideal car insurance. And then number 11, define your ideal collection of income producing assets. Income producing assets. This is key because you will be able to achieve financial freedom the moment that your passive income exceeds your cost of living. And your passive income comes from income producing assets. So you have so the whole strategy, right, of being able to retire early, it's very simple, right? You simply have to build up your income producing assets to a level in which your income producing assets are producing an income that exceeds your cost of living. That's what it's all about. And of course, you have to, try to keep your cost of living down enough so that you're able to reach that point, right? So, because really, there's two parts to the equation, right? It's your passive income and then it's your cost of living, right? So you want to keep your cost of living down and you want to build up your passive income, right? And so, and as I said, your passive income comes from your assets that you own, your income producing assets. So in this step, number 11, you want to define what is your ideal collection of income producing assets, right? Those assets that are going to produce an income for you that's going to cover your costs of living so that you can retire, right? So that you can be financially free, right? Because that's what the definition of financial freedom is. When your cost of living is less than your passive income. Or in other words, when your passive income exceeds your cost of living, right? So think about income producing assets. You have to strategize. You have to be very intentional about what what will be your collection of income producing assets. All right. Now here's some things to consider. Some examples, okay? If you have a like W-2 job, okay? Think about this. If you have a W-2 job and they offer like a employer sponsored retirement plan, take advantage of it only if they are matching your contributions. And if so, only participate up to the match. Okay. So if you have an employer that doesn't offer like matching contributions regarding an employer sponsored plan, then don't participate if they're not matching you, right? Because there's a lot of fees that are associated with those employer sponsored plans. And so the really only real benefit of participating in an employer sponsored retirement plan is if they are matching your contributions because that's free money. If they're matching your contributions, that's free money, right? And if they do so, only participate up to the match. So like if they match your contributions, up to 5%, then participate up to 5%, right? All right. So employer sponsored plans participate, but only up to the match, right? Number two, Roth IRA stock index funds. Very, very powerful tool. And in fact, I believe that's one of the most powerful investment tools is the Roth IRA because although you don't get a tax break in the current year that you contribute into your Roth IRA, but money that you have in your Roth IRA, it will grow tax free. And when you start to withdraw money at retirement age, all that money is also tax free, right? So it's a very, very powerful tool. So Roth IRA stock index fund. Also, now is such a great tool that that the IRS limits your contribution, right? So if you're under 50, the maximum contribution that you could put into your Roth IRA is $7,000. If you're over 50, you can do an extra 1,000. So that means if you're over 50, you can do a maximum of $8,000. Take definitely fully fund your Roth IRA account because it's such a powerful tool, right? And after you fully fund it, then if you still have money to invest, do a regular, stock index fund, right? A taxable account, right? Um, Index funds are so very powerful because they're low cost. And if you look at like an index like the S&P 500, if you look at the S&P 500, index funds that track the S&P 500, although they go up and down, but over the long run, they always go up. If you look at any 15-year period, right, it's always made money, right? So, invest in that. Now, keep in mind, right, this is long term, this is retirement, right, money, right? It's long term investing, right? Never, here's a general rule. General rule is this: never invest money that you might need within the short term. When I say short term, I mean like, 5, 10 years, right? This is, stock market investing, like index funds, right? It's for long-term investing, right? Because in the short term, it dips, right? So you don't want to invest money that you might need in the short term because you might lose money, because what if you need to, take that money out when the stock market has taken a dip, right? So that's not wise, right? But that's why I'm saying always invest money that you can afford to leave in for the long term, right? Because in the long term, you always make money, right? So regular stock index fund. Also look in the HSA, health savings account, right? Like we were talking about in the health insurance. Health savings account is where you're like investing money into the stock market, but it's a special account, and you could take it out only for health related expenses, right? And so there's a lot of benefits to that. Um, and then a regular traditional IRA, right? Like let's say that you stopped working, like suppose that you have an old retirement account from a former employer. You can roll that over into an IRA account, right? So you want to look into that as well. So stock investments, right? Very powerful tools for building your income producing assets. They're very powerful income producing assets, stock investments. Um, Also, real estate investments, right? Real estate is a very powerful asset, right? But you have to do it the right way, right? So, cash flowing rental properties, you have to know how to analyze a deal, right? To make sure that it cash flows, right? Cash flow rental properties. Also, private money lending, right? This is where you lend money to like house flippers, right? And the money is secured by collateral, which is the actual property, right? The house. And, with that too, you have to be able to do that wisely, right? But yeah, very powerful tool, private money lending. Next one, intellectual property, right? Intellectual property, right? Like, if you write a digital book, right? What's really cool, it's very passive because once you write it, once you create the intellectual property, it will continue to pay you, right? And you don't have to do any more work, right? So a digital book is a great example of intellectual property. Amazon KDP, let's say you self-publish a book on Amazon, right? And after you've done all the work, the money just keeps flowing, right? I mean, of course, with that you still have to market it and everything, right? People still have to want to buy it, right? YouTube monetization. YouTube monetization. Very powerful, right? You build a YouTube channel and monetize it, right? That's very powerful. All right. So now, so this is huge, right? Define your ideal collection of income producing assets. Very important, right? Now, another thing I want to mention is this: minimize your investment fees. This is very key. See, a lot of these investment accounts, they have fees associated with them. Understand what the fees are. This is why I highly recommend index funds because index funds have very low investment fees compared to like regular mutual funds and stuff, right? So make sure, and especially if you're working with some type of like financial advisor, make sure you understand what the fees are, right? And really look at that because maybe you might not need a lot of financial advice, right? So really look at what you're paying in terms of investment fees, right? In today's world, there's a lot of information that you can do. There's a lot of research that you can do by yourself, even, but really look at your fees because those fees will add up, right? So really minimize your investment fees, right? Now, before we close, I want to make a special note. What we're talking about here is very important because you know, we become financially rich by doing the right thing, right? By trading our time for money and all that, we become financially rich. But we become financially wealthy by owning the right thing. So I'll say it again. We become financially rich by doing the right things, but we become financially wealthy by owning the right things. And when I say owning the right things, I mean when we own assets, income producing assets, because these income producing assets will generate income for us that's passive income. And like I said earlier, when our passive income exceeds our cost of living, that is when we achieve financial freedom. And when we achieve financial freedom, that's when we're able to retire, right? And it's not about hitting a certain age whenever, regardless of how old you are, whenever your passive income exceeds your cost of living, you will be able to retire, right? So that's what it is. So now notice that I said financially rich and financially wealthy, right? Because I want to make this note that real wealth, true wealth, really has nothing to do with finances, right? Right? True wealth is about being healthy in your core. And what I mean by core, I mean by your mind, your body, and your spirit, your soul, right? Right? Your mind, your body, and your soul, right? When you're true wealth is about being healthy in your mind, your body, and your soul, right? Because think about it. What profits a person to gain the whole world but forfeit their soul? And so, I talk a lot about financial literacy and becoming financially wealthy and being able to retire early, but I want to also always make sure I make the point that true wealth is about being healthy, healthy mind, healthy body, healthy soul, right? One of my favorite Bible verses, it talks about how, but seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you, right? So make sure you prioritize your health, right? Especially your spiritual health above all other things, right? Now, homework for you. Here's your homework. Here's your homework. I would like for you to write out your ideal collection of income producing assets, because that's key in terms of building financial wealth, right? You need to have you need to be very intentional about building your income producing assets, right? Because it's those income producing assets that will allow you to be able to retire early, because your income producing assets, because as soon as your income producing assets generate income that exceeds your cost of living, right? Passive income that exceeds your cost of living, that is when you are able to retire. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on the next episode.